Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending. We're just waiting for some people to show up, and so you might want to refresh the browser. We'll be starting in a few minutes. We're gonna wait a few more minutes, waiting for some people to show up. Oh, that's cool. We've got some visitors from Scotland, from Brazil. Thanks for joining. Oh, that's cool. We did. We've got some visitors from Scotland, Brazil. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. So, we've just got about 2 minutes or so until we can maybe get started, and then hopefully people start showing up. Some more people. Oh, Estonia. Okay. Okay, so well, it's about 10 o'clock now, my time, and so I suppose we can get started. So first of all, thank you, you guys, Alan, Gabriel, Arash. Thanks for joining. And so far, I mean, that really gives me a lot of encouragement to see some people that I can share this webinar with to start with. And if you're watching this in the replay, I'll still be glad to hear from you and get your feedback on this. I hope you enjoy what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, let me just introduce myself a little bit in case you don't know me. My name is Jonathan. I'm from Southern California, outside of Los Angeles. However, I haven't lived in the States for about 13 years. I got started learning foreign languages about 20 years ago. I mean, that makes me sound really old now. When I was in my first year of high school, I started with Spanish, and then 2 years after that, I started picking up French for my third year of high school. And so when I was in my my first year of French, I was in my third year of Spanish, and the Spanish really started to help me boost my French. And so in my last year of high school, I was in Spanish for advanced placement, so I could get like university credit. And I jumped to French 3. I completely skipped the level of French 2 because my Spanish had just really given me a solid foundation in the 2 Romance languages. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but in my last year of high school, my French teacher took us on a trip to Europe. That was my first trip abroad. And we went on like a spring break trip for there was a study abroad that had like we had a school exchange. So there was an international language high school from Geneva in that area that visited us in California in October. And then in our spring break, about 6 months later in April, we went and visited them. And just about that time, when they had arrived and visited us, I started learning some German. So in my 4th year of high school, I was taking my 4th year of Spanish, my 2nd year of French at the level 3, and at a local community college, I started taking conversational German in the evenings. So when I got on this airplane to go to Europe for the first time, I was just completely inspired. There's this little German girl sitting next to me on the airplane. I was practicing some German with her. I met this Spanish woman, and I started practicing some Spanish with her. And then my whole classmates, we were all learning French. So I was completely in my element. I loved learning foreign languages, and this opportunity to visit Europe was just an awesome experience. And I remember like a little kid in a candy store when I arrived at the airport in Frankfurt, I went up to all these random strangers and I was asking them, haben Sie die Uhrzeit? Haben Sie die Uhrzeit? Like, excuse me, do you have the time? Entschuldigen Sie mich, haben Sie die Uhrzeit? And I was just like, I just wanted to try this German immediately. That I learned a few phrases, I wanted to try it. And although nobody spoke to me, they just showed me their watch and showed me the time. But and then I was in Geneva for about a week, and we visited some local areas of in south east France, Lyon and Annecy. We even made a trip to northern Italy. So I was trying to practice a little bit of Italian, mixing it in with Spanish and French. And then the second week we were in Paris, and that experience just completely changed my life. When I got back to the States, I had one goal, and that was learn French so that I could move back to France someday. So, and I made that happen. I moved there. I studied French at the university when I finished high school, and I was really eager to go back to France because like I was so obsessed and so stubborn about the goal that I was willing to do anything. And when I was at the university, there was a possibility to do like a study abroad for like a semester, but I was really worried about that possibility of I would love studying abroad so much that I would not want to come back. So, and I thought that was a real risk because I really enjoyed my trip, that first trip there. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to do a study abroad experience. I'm going to accelerate my university studies. So instead of doing them in 4 years, I did them in 3. So how I started to take like semesters that were like 20 units or 24 units, which basically when you're a full-time student, you're doing about 12 units to take 18 units. Each unit is about an hour of in-class time. So it was an enormous course load. And I was at actually like 2 universities. I was at a community college and doing full-time there, and at the 4-year university where I was eventually going to get my degree from. And I was doing basically at the same time, doing like 12 units there and 12 units there. I was off their radar because I didn't have to ask for permission for like studying extra or like some really large course load. So by doing that, I was basically compacting a year of like 2 semesters in 1 semester. So I did this back to back on one time, and I was able to get basically a full year of doing like 2 semesters that were just jam-packed with content and courses. And so by doing that, I was able to cut my 4-year university studies down to 3. So when I finished my university studies in 2002, I really had nothing holding me back. I didn't have a job. I didn't have really any student debt. I was really lucky with that. So I went on vacation to Paris a few months after I finished my degree in French and music. And so my original plan was just kind of go over there on vacation, spend some time, come back to the States, make some money, save up, and then go back the next January. Except when I visited the Sorbonne, one of the universities in Paris, one of the oldest ones, I asked them for information about their studies, and they said, "Oh, well, today's your lucky day. In the calendar of like admissions, yeah, we'll accept you, except you can't come back in January. You have to start in October." And I was there in August, in September, and I was just like, "Wait, what? Yeah, you can start now, basically, but you need your student visa." And I had to go find a place to live. So I went to the American dormitory at the Cité Universitaire, and I put myself on a waiting list to get a room. And suddenly I just started toying with this idea, okay, I'm gonna live here. And I had about a week before my plane ticket to go back in October, and I was still waiting on this information, and they told me at the last minute that the American dormitory, hey, we have a dorm room available, do you still want it? And I said, definitely. So I went straight there, signed some papers, gave them some money, and so I had a dorm room at the American dormitory. I was accepted to the Paris, the University of the Sorbonne, and then I had to go back home to get the student visa. It was ridiculous. I couldn't go get this in Washington. I had to go all the way back to LA, and I was there for like 3 days, and to just change out of summer clothes and get pants and winter gear, and actually say bye to my friends and family who were expecting me to go back to the States. But that was 2002, and that was the start of my studying abroad, living abroad experience. And so I was in Paris for 6 years, and more recently I've been in Mexico City for about 7 years. So that's me in a nutshell with my language background. I started with Spanish 20 years ago, then French, then German. Then when I was at the university full-time, I did some conversational Italian. I found a Japanese exchange student, so I hired him to give me some Japanese tutoring, just some basics. My dad had a lot of language books, so I started listening to some Pimsleur Russian. I didn't get too far into it, but I just let the floodgates open with my curiosity with all these languages. So it's been like that for like the last 20 years of just, I love learning foreign languages, and that's really what one of my passions is. So today we're going to get into the presentation here with what are some ways that you can maximize your language learning potential. And these are some things that I've learned over the years, and these are some things that I teach with my English students. And now I'm trying to get into expanding out to language coaching to help other people with their foreign language studies. So tell me a little bit about your studies. How long have you been learning your target language? So I see there's Japanese, you see there's German. What else are you guys working on? Norwegian, okay. So tell me a little bit about how long have you been studying that, and what are your goals with that? Hi, Bruce. Thanks for joining the webinar as well. So Japanese and French. See, Gabrielle, that you've been working on English, okay, and an exchange program in the US. That's great. Okay. Okay, so you seen some things, wanting to watch interviews without subtitles. Cool. Okay. Well, great. Let's get into the presentation. So, I probably won't be able to see the chat box while I'm giving the presentation, but I'll come back to this, your comments in the chat box. Okay, you started with Norwegian and Christmas. Oh, and there's an opportunity to perhaps to move to Norway. That's cool. Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, hopefully this is going to give you some ideas to work with the language. Okay. So let's get into the presentation then. So I'm going to do a screen share here. Okay. So you guys can see the PowerPoint. Let me just see this. It's going to start to load. Make sure that loads. Okay, yeah, I can see that the PowerPoint is there on the screen. Okay, so we're going to get started on the PowerPoint here. Okay. So yeah, so the 5 ways to maximize your language learning potential. And so thank you again for attending. So it's great to have a couple of you guys here. I really appreciate you spending some time and helping me out with my first webinar here. So I hope you're going to get some good advice, and I'm happy to help you guys with your language learning experience. So, okay, let's dive into this. What are we going to be looking at? So the 5 ways to start with is, okay, your mindset. And the idea, okay, you don't learn the language, you use it. And burn your boats, document your progress, and learn in a community. Okay, so your mindset. Why is this so important? It's really important to give yourself a dream, a goal. What is it you want to do with that language? So I see you have an opportunity to maybe go live abroad or study abroad. So that, for me, that was a big dream that I had when I was working with French. I just had that experience when I went to Europe for the first time, and I became obsessed with this idea of, I want to go move to France. I want to go live there. I want to study there. That was my big dream. And so the gift that I could kind of give myself if I did that was this awesome experience living abroad. And how can learning a new language change your life? It's incredible. I mean, I've been living abroad for 13 years now. My wife is French Mexican. When I started with Spanish and French, I mean, I had no idea of these really awesome possibilities of people who were multicultural, bilingual. I had no idea that, okay, uh, learning Spanish and French could make me this great potential person for somebody who is a French Mexican and learns English. So it was just this really awesome coincidence that we met. And since then, okay, I lived in France. Now I'm living in Mexico. I have two children who are growing up bilingually, learning French and Spanish and English. So it's not only language learning is not just changed my life, it's also, uh, I mean, I've created lives, I've created people who are growing up in the language learning experience, and they're my little guinea pigs sometimes for how are they learning Spanish, how are they learning French, how are they learning English. So yeah, learning a language, if you have an opportunity to go live abroad or study abroad, it just opens up so many doors that you can't even possibly imagine. You don't know. But to give yourself that possibility, you have to start learning. And you need to have this mindset that you become almost obsessed with a goal, that you want to make this happen, and nothing's going to hold you back. And the idea, what are you willing to do to be successful in that goal? So you really need to make a big dream and just use your imagination to get really creative and give yourself a gift, like set something in place that is going to motivate you. So the first one for me was the possibility of living in France um, and living abroad. Right now, I'm in the Add One challenge, and Arash you can mention some of these things in the chat of like your experience in there. And there's a possibility of winning a plane ticket to the target language country. So right now I'm working on Russian, and I've developed a lot of contacts in Russia through the VKontakte website, and I've been working with language exchange partners. I've been working with Italki teachers and teachers offline, and trying to get myself to speak in Russian at least like 30 minutes every day. And the target in that challenge is to be able to like do a 15-minute conversation at the end of 90 days. I'm kind of already there, and I'm doing like 45 minutes, 60 minutes. And I'm not saying that to brag, but it's just I'm so determined to win that prize that I'm not waiting 90 days to make this happen. I'm making it happen now, so that when I reach those 90 days, I'm going to be so advanced and so motivated that like I have no obstacles. I'm not letting anything get in the way. So if I say I'm tired, I still do the work. I still put in a few minutes to make some practice, to talk to people, and I'm just my goal. I have my goal so well defined in my mind that I can see myself already accomplishing this. And if you see interviews with people like Michael Phelps, I mean, with his gold medals in swimming, I mean, when he's in a course, he is seeing himself in the water, seeing himself like winning before he jumps in the water. And that mentality is so motivating. And it's kind of like if you have that carrot in front of you while you're doing your learning, it really keeps you moving forward. So you need this passionate dream that you want to make happen, and you need that because there are going to be difficult days. There are going to be moments when you don't want to do the work. That it's like, I'm tired, I'm sick, I don't feel like doing this. but you need something to keep you motivated on those bad days so that you stay in the game. Because if you let one day slip, chances are it's going to become 2. And when you get to 2 days and you slip, it might become 3, then it might become a week. And then you start feeling guilty, you start feeling kind of depressed, you start feeling frustrated, and you don't want any of that to happen, because that's poison for your language learning. So you want to give yourself an easy way to kind of do a little bit each day. And so right now I'm kind of assigning myself like 5-10 minutes. Okay, let me just do 5-10 minutes. Let me just do that. I can manage that. I'm not saying I'm going to do an hour or 5 hours. I mean, if I make this manageable and easy, it's something I can do. And then when I get those little wins or successes, that motivates me to keep going. So this combination of this big dream that I want to accomplish and small manageable tasks in my daily routine help me get to where I want to be in the future. And then I kind of work backwards from, where do I want to be in a week? Where do I want to be in a month? Now, what can I do today to get me there? And what can I do tomorrow as the next step and the next step? So you kind of think, you kind of plan ahead. What's your big dream? Start breaking it down into milestones and where you want to be. And you need to be kind of specific with this, of like using SMART goals of something specific, something measurable. So it might be vocabulary, it might be a certain vocabulary or grammar element that you want to be able to do fluently. So you need something manageable. You need something that's kind of pushing you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And it has to be kind of realistic. I mean, if it's too far out of your comfort zone and you're not going to be able to do it, you need to kind of find this balance, something that's going to make you improve, but something that you can do. And it has to be time bound, so that give yourself something like a week, a month, a year, and start breaking it down into those things. So your mindset is so important. You need to have that in place so that you stay motivated no matter what happens. I've had a lot of failure in my language learning experience. I admit that. Like, I've done challenges before, and then I maybe overcommit, and then like I set myself like, okay, a penalty. If I don't do what I said I was going to do, something's going to happen. So I was doing a language learning challenge from October to December, just about 6 months ago, and I was going to read like 90 short stories by Chekhov. And I gave myself a penalty of, if I don't do this and I don't keep up with the challenge, I'm going to stop drinking coffee for a year. So if you see me in the video so far, I'm drinking tea. We're in the middle of April, so I've been at least 100 days without coffee this year. I regret it a little bit, but it's each day when I wake up and I look at my cup of tea, I realize that language learning is not a cup of tea. So you need to be careful with your goals. Like, you need something that's going to keep you motivated, but you need something that's going to be like realistic. So it's very easy to get into the euphoria of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn that, I'm going to learn 20 languages, and I'm going to be this awesome polyglot. But if you do too many things at the same time, you get really stretched very thin. So you need something that you can do, that is possible, that's going to keep you motivated even when you're on bad days or days that you're tired or lazy or you just want to procrastinate. So you need something you're going to be really passionate about, and so that's going to keep you motivated throughout your learning experience, even if it's like a week or a month or 6 months or the rest of your life. You need something that you're going to hold on to, and kind of hold on to it as if your life depends on it. So that's really important to start off with. It's like, whatever your target is, whatever your goal is, and also write it down, kind of put it into words, put it on paper, and maybe even make a visual image out of it. Because a lot of people, they have like a motivation board where they study, where they work, and the brain works awesomely with images. So that's why these kind of motivational pictures with somebody standing on top of a mountain and with like their hands raised in like a success pose are really powerful. The brain loves those images, and when the brain can visualize you being successful, it gets on board with you. Like first it's you mentally, like your willpower to think of what I want to do, but once your brain kind of gets in there and your heart kind of gets in there with that dream, you've got a powerful ally. And once the obsession kind of gets in there and you're becoming stubborn, nothing's going to stop you. The obstacles just, they're nothing. Like in your head, you might think, oh, this is so impossible. But if you break it down and you make it like manageable, anything is possible. Anything is possible you put your mind to. And don't let obstacles get in the way. And things that I'm seeing right now when I'm learning Russian is that like whatever is so difficult and I want to avoid doing because it's like painful, it's mentally painful, it's like forcing me to think, like doing declensions and doing motion verbs, and it's really complex grammar and it's frustrating and I want to stop. But I realize it's difficult while I don't do it. But if I do a little bit, that thing that was so difficult, like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill with some of this stuff. But if I do a little bit, I understand a little bit, and then it becomes easier. And then little by little, this big monstrous challenge becomes manageable. Like I can break it down into baby steps, and I can do a little bit here, I can do a little bit there. And when I can do that, my obstacles, they start to shrink until the point that I have experience, I have practice, I'm getting some feedback, I'm getting support, and finally I just look at this as if it were this like little miniature obstacle, and I say, this little thing, how could I be so scared of that? I can do that. So when you can get that perspective with your obstacles, it's really all in the mind. So if you have a positive mindset and you're really motivated, you can do anything. So that's basically what I'm going to say about mindset. But that's the really first big thing that you need with your language learning experience. And this, I think, goes with anything in life. You need to get the proper mindset of like whatever your dream is, even if it's not just language learning. If it's like you want to buy a house, you want to be a millionaire, whatever. If you get that dream in place, you're going to be willing to do anything to make it happen. And any obstacles that come in the way, you're going to find solutions. So you want to have a proper mindset before you start any goal, any dream. And so think about your goals, write them down, share them with people, let other people know what your plans are, make it tangible, let those people hold you accountable for what your dream is, and that they'll check up on you of like, hey, you wanted to do this. How are you with that project? Are you making some progress? Where are you at now? So it's really important to have those people kind of checking up on you, because if it's just stays in your mind and you don't talk about this to other people, you might not have that commitment. You may let it go after a couple weeks or a month. You may give up very easily. So, but if you share the dream, have a big goal. Okay. So the next thing, okay, don't learn the language, use it. So what I mean by this is like a lot of people, they go into language classes and they look at the grammar, they look at the vocabulary, they look at pronunciation, they do some reading exercises, they do some listening exercises, and they don't do a lot of speaking practice and stuff. And it's a little boring, basically. So another way to do this is kind of like a camera. If you shift the focus, you're no longer looking at the language, you kind of look at something else, and you use the language as a tool so you can learn something else. So one way to get your foot in the door with a language is, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are you passionate about? And use that to get you interested. There's something in the mind that if you start associating something pleasurable with a new activity, chances are you're going to be more interested in doing that again and again and again. But what happens if you're doing something boring, maybe even something painful and embarrassing and torturous? Do you want to do that again? Chances are probably not. So if you associate like your language experience of some boring book, you'd be wishing you were outside of that classroom and doing something else, or a teacher embarrasses you because you make a grammatical mistake or your pronunciation is terrible. The more you associate those negative experiences with language learning, the more chances are you want to give up and do something else. But if you make it fun for yourself, you make it interesting, you're going to probably want to keep going. So use your hobbies and interests to keep yourself engaged. So one way you can do that is like take a Wikipedia article about something that's interesting to you in the target language. So for me, I love music. So I might go look at a biographical article about Mozart or Beethoven in the target language. And because I already know stuff about those people, I know when they were born, I know what kind of music they did, I know what instruments they played, or where they lived, or any of that stuff, I can find that information a little bit easier in that target language. Even if I don't really speak that target language, I can start to pinpoint where some of the information, I can pick up some vocabulary. And it's interesting to me because I'm familiar with that content, and I can use my interests and my hobbies to acquire new vocabulary, new grammar with something I'm familiar with. And because I'm passionate about it, it makes the language learning kind of a lot easier. Like I already like music, so why not learn about music in the language? So this is very true when I moved to Paris. I had the opportunity to learn French like as a actual language class at the Sorbonne, and I said no, thank you. I didn't want to be stuck in a room talking about French grammar and French vocabulary like for hours. I wanted to do something with the language. So at first I was doing like French literature studies, and it was just way too complicated. I had no idea how to do an essay or how to work on like a commentaire composé or a dissertation or like an analyse de texte. Some of these things that are just like very specific to French textual analysis, and I couldn't do it. So the first year I failed, but the next year I went back into music, and so I was studying music, and I already knew about music. I was a bit familiar with this. So now it was, let's talk about music in French. And as a result, because I already dominated like the musical aspect and I knew what I was talking about, the language French became like a tool to help me talk about music. And I actually did start learning some new skills with the music. And my French, because I was not focusing on my French, I was focusing on music, something else, one of my interests and passions, I started to acquire the language kind of in a natural way without like really focusing on it so much. So using the language as a tool can get you the language kind of passively. Another thing when I was living there for the first year is I did not have a laptop. And in the dormitory, there was like 4 desktop computers in this really small computer lab. And since most of us were Americans and really obsessed with technology and computers and internet, it was very difficult to find time to kind of go send an email or check stuff online. And this was 2002, Facebook didn't exist yet, and Twitter and all these social media things just didn't exist. So to really use the internet for me was just to send an email to my family, and that was about it. And I didn't really have too much time to be checking out the news and things. So there were these free newspapers that would give out in the metro, like Metro Monde or something. So that was really like, it was free, and that was really one of the only ways I was kind of in contact with news from the US or news from around the world. My focus with those newspapers was not, hey, I'm going to learn French with this newspaper. My focus was shifting it to what is going on in the world, what's going on in the States. So I had to use the French language, and even if my skills were kind of limited a bit with the vocabulary and the grammar, my focus was not the language, my focus was on the content. And so I had to use the language as a tool to help me acquire other knowledge. So it's really, and by doing that, I started to learn the language kind of passively, and I started to become more familiar with just the typical things that people use in writing, or the typical things that people use in speaking. So I wasn't like using these kind of texts from the 1700s with like Voltaire and Rousseau and Molière and whatever. I was using like current modern day French, and later on I got a TV, and then I was able to listen to what people would say on the TV and the news. And again, I wanted to know what was going on in the world, so I had to use the language to be able to get that information. And it's really cool also when you learn something new, like a new skill in the language. You connect with the language in this really cool way where you're not just acquiring like new vocabulary and new grammar based on something you already know. You start to learn something new. So like if you could go to like dance classes, or you could learn how to cook, or I don't know, whatever you can do, you can think of, try signing up for some class that might be like about something different, but it's taught in that target language. And it's really cool when you can do that, because then you acquire a new skill, you acquire it in the target language, and you're actually using the language. You're not just learning about the language, you're using it. So that's really like the second way that I would say to really maximize your potential is don't just learn about the language, start using it to do something else. Okay, the next thing, burn your boats. Okay, what do I mean by this? I've been living in Mexico for 7 years and getting into a little bit of the Mexican history with like Hernan Cortez and the conquest from like 500 years ago. And one of the things I found really fascinating when he took his men and arrived in like the Yucatan is that like he burned the boats. So there was no way to leave the country. It was like you go forward, you like either you conquer this new country or you die trying. So what I mean for in language learning with burn your boats is kind of like stop translating, stop depending on your mother tongue, and kind of disable the off switch. One thing that I've seen when I've been living abroad is like I remember like the first morning I woke up in Geneva, and like my French was just like so poor at the time, and they asked me like if I wanted something to drink or whatever, and I didn't know what they were saying, and or they gave me like so many options, like do you want hot water or cold water? I just wanted a glass of water, and the rest of the day was just all in French. Like these people didn't really speak too much English, so I had to survive in that language. So I realized there was no off switch. Like I couldn't turn the language off and go back to English when I was over there in Europe for the first time. So I had to start surviving in the language directly and immediately. And when you're doing like you're studying language at in your own country, and you might connect with language exchange, and you might do classes in a school, there's an off switch. So you get comfortable and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back and start speaking my mother tongue. But if you can kind of simulate certain experiences where you just like disable the off switch, where you have to survive in this target language no matter what happens, like, or if you're doing a language exchange and you're on Skype or whatever, and like you have a temptation to say, oh, how do I say that in my mother tongue? Don't. Try to explain it in the target language. So if you're using kind of a bilingual dictionary, you're still dependent on your mother tongue. So try to figure out ways, like if you use a monolingual dictionary, like you don't know this word, you kind of look it up in the target language, and you start to acquire more vocabulary, and you figure out better ways to explain when you lack the words. So the sooner you start surviving in the target language, the chances are you're going to be continuing to move forward. But if you're really dependent on crutches and training wheels, the progress is going to be a lot slower, and you're going to probably be a lot frustrated because, like, well, you're never going to find the perfect translation. And languages are not like translations of each other. I mean, languages, it develops independently, in a country, there might be a little bit of influence over the throughout history, but in reality, when people are in Paris speaking French, they're not actually thinking in English and then deciding to speak in French just to be chic. No, it's they think in French to express something in French about life in France, and they're not thinking of a translation. So if you could get in the mindset of like, I want to use this target language, and I don't want to translate, your chances are a lot higher if you can stay within that target language. And even if you suffer a little bit and you lack vocabulary, lack grammar, you can find ways to kind of get creative. Like if you don't know the word for like run, you can say walk quickly, something like that. So and this happens to me all the time. It's like I kind of have to circumlocute a lack of vocabulary to try to use it something else. And chances are a native speaker is going to say, oh, you mean this word. And they give you that word. So you can kind of use people in a certain way as like a reverse dictionary. Like you give them the definition of the word that you're looking for. It's kind of like playing some word games, like, I don't know, like pyramid or something. Like you're not allowed to say the word. In this case, you don't know the word. So if you give them the definition, you describe what it is that you want, chances are a native speaker might be able to like say, oh, yeah, you mean this word, or you mean this expression. So don't be afraid of doing that. I mean, don't abuse it too much, but like treat that experience as kind of like a word game where like if you can help the native speaker like help you in terms of like, okay, I'm thinking of this thing, and this thing, you use it to do blah, blah, blah. And you do that when you are hungry. And so give them these like context clues to help them, almost like a word game, and they'll be trying to help you like, oh, do you mean this? Do you mean that? So I get accused sometimes of just using people as a walking dictionary, but if you are able to be clever with it, you can get some vocabulary, you can get some new expressions from a conversation in target language and not be like annoying, but you can survive in the language. And the more you try to stick with it, the easier it becomes over time. Okay. Now the next one here, document your progress. So I'm in the Add One challenge right now, and these are some cover photos from like, I did a video for the day 7, and I've been doing this on a daily basis. Okay, then there's day 14, and then there's day 21, like 4 days ago, and I'm just really making an effort to record myself on a daily basis. I'm trying to write some notebook entries on Italki, and I'm trying to do audio recordings as well, like a podcast. And so it's really important, or like a blog, if you want to write about like your progress and share this with people as a website. That's really awesome as well. Like involve other people in your experience. So document your progress as much as you can. Make videos, make recordings, make blog posts, write in the target language, and help other people help you. So kind of make your information public. And one of the things that really motivated me with this idea of like YouTube videos was there's a teenager, Tim Donor, and he has like a TED Talk, and he was using this idea of making videos. And I mean, years ago, I mean, if you looked at the comments on YouTube videos, they were just really nasty, and people would just be criticizing everybody. And it was just like, yeah, there's a big risk if you put a video out there. But now things are starting to become very positive and very encouraging with the different language learning communities. And more likely, you're probably going to get some feedback from a native speaker who says, hey, good job, keep it up. You're making some good progress. Oh, I saw your video from like a week ago, and I saw your video today. Like, wow, you're doing a good job, keep it up. And then they might be able to correct your grammar. They might be like, oh, you think you meant to say this. So you suddenly have this chance of like reaching a really broad audience of potential people who can help you with your language learning and give you feedback if you kind of make your progress public. I mean, obviously there are people who are shy and introverted and like that might be embarrassed by sharing what they're doing. So this might not be for everybody, I know that, but if you can at least make an audio recording and maybe upload it to, let's say, Dropbox, and you have your like playlist of stuff, maybe you can find a language exchange partner, like somebody you trust, or a teacher on italki or whatever, and share a link to that audio file with somebody you trust. Maybe you don't want to make this like public to the entire world, but maybe you find a specific person that you trust and ask that person for some feedback. But you need to be kind of documenting what you're doing. So, and this is also a way for you yourself to see how far you've come in a certain amount of time. And when, like now, when I watch some of my videos from like weeks ago or months ago, because I've done a few other challenges, like I can hear my mistakes like a mile away, and I start to like, oh yeah, I meant to say this, or since then I've learned that proper way to say it. And it's a way for me to review and see like, yeah, I have made some progress. And I see this with my kids where it's like, I don't really recognize the daily changes that go on, but when people see my kids like a month later, they're like, wow, they've gotten so big, or oh, they're talking and they're doing all these things. And I might not see it because it's on a daily basis, but if I document it, I have a picture, I have a video or a recording, and then I look back like a week later or 2 weeks later, I start to get a sense of, yeah, there is some progress going on there. And also with progress, it's not perfection. It's, you need to just get a little bit better each day. Don't worry about making mistakes, and don't worry about like, oh, I sound so stupid on a recording. I mean, mistakes are part of the learning experience, and just embrace them, and be authentic. And if you are having like, oh, how do I say that? Those little aha, how do I say that moments are an opportunity to go check your vocabulary. And if you're making these recordings kind of by yourself, you have a little bit less of embarrassment of like when you're talking to another person, like a native speaker. So these are like practice opportunities for you to speak and to force yourself to practice, or at least with the writing as well. And the more you do this on a regular basis, the easier it becomes. And then when you do actually speak with a native speaker, you have more and more confidence because of that progress and that practice that you've been doing on a daily basis. So as much as you can, document what you're doing. Okay. And the last thing I would say is learn in a community. Don't be a lone wolf. Don't reinvent the wheel by yourself. There's been so many language learners out there who've been there, done that, and like you can gain a lot of information from their experience. So if you find communities, let's say on like Facebook or other social media, like people who've been learning your target language, like join them, ask them for tips on what resources that they used. If they can give you a recommendation for a teacher, and maybe talk to multiple teachers online. I mean, italki is really good when you can do a notebook entry and then you get people giving you feedback on your writing, and then maybe you can do a trial class with them and check out if you like working with that person or not, and you can get recommendations from other students of who's a good teacher and who do you recommend, or you can compare approaches and techniques from different teachers. But don't try to do all this by yourself. You need mentors. You need like people who can keep you motivated, along with your own goals and big dreams. So find people who've been there and can have found solutions and have been successful with their studies. And I mentioned this community that I created in July last year. I had to beg and plead people to join at the beginning last July. I'm like, hey, please join my group. I was getting so many requests to chat with people on GoSpeaky, and at some point it was just so many requests and I couldn't help everybody. So I decided to just create a group. And this photo, when it says 9,000 members, that's from last night. We just reached 9,000 members. These are people who are learning languages from around the world. They are awesome people. I love talking to these people. We have weekly sessions on Saturday mornings, and I hear about what they're doing. We have so many really fascinating topics that we discuss and projects that are developing because of these kind of brainstorming and mastermind groups and sharing tips and advice on how to learn languages and what worked and what didn't. And these people they keep me motivated, especially when like I have my big dreams and my big goals, but when I see what other people are working on, they inspire me so much. It's incredible. So learning in a community is an awesome experience. And I think that is where the future of language learning is. And that's like why there's the Ad1 community that I'm part of. And when you are joined by fellow people who are as passionate as you are and struggling and working and not giving up, you get this momentum that's incredible. I mean, when everybody works together and everybody keeps each other motivated, you get this forward momentum that you can't when you're alone. And it's very easy to give up when you are alone. So I would say, as much as possible, go find groups or communities that you can join, either like with your target language, or you can talk to native speakers and teachers, but don't be by yourself. Find people who can help you, and if possible, like create your own group. I mean, that's what I did. I created a group, and now it's got this incredible amount of people in it. And I mean, I don't really have to promote it that much anymore. I'm promoting it right now in this webinar, but I'm getting all these requests to join, and so it's really awesome to see all these people who are wanting to join and signing up. So that's basically what we've looked at today, of like your mindset, have a big dream, don't necessarily learn the language, try to use the language as a tool to help you learn something else, burn your boats, so kind of be as focused on using that language as much as you can without translations and without being dependent on some kind of crutch or training wheels. Document your progress as much as you can, like videos and recordings and blog posts, and put it out there so other people can help you. And finally, join a community so that you can get advice and tips and recommendations from different language learners and experts and teachers and native speakers. So just immerse yourself in an online community or an offline community as well. Those are awesome when you can meet at a restaurant or a cafe to talk, like a meet up that might be organized once a month. You can find those on different things like Craigslist or expat communities. They might have you might have foreigners living in your country or your town that you might be able to talk to. You might be able to network and say, hey, I'll help you learn about this local city. I'll be your tour guide, and in exchange, maybe you can help me learn the language. So get creative with some of those ways that you could network with native speakers or language learners. Okay, and finally, a little bit of self-plugging, sorry. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at jhugsint. If you want to join that Facebook group that I just showed there, with you can use the short link at tinyurl.com/ in all caps FBLANGEX, so Facebook Language Exchange, but all in caps, like FBLANGEX. And if you want to check out my YouTube channel and listen to my horrible Russian pronunciation, where I'm going through the Ad1 challenge today, you can do, again, tinyurl.com/YouTube Jonathan, all in caps, and you can find my YouTube channel. And lastly, I'm doing a 30-day language learning challenge through email. So that's on my website. If you go below this video, all the way at the bottom of the page, you can sign up with your email address and your name, and I'll send you an email back and let me know what language you're learning and what your level is, and I'll be helping you with like a 30-day challenge so that you can really boost your language learning. So thank you so much for joining me with this webinar, and I'm going to stop the screen share now, and I'm going to take some questions. So thank you very much, and thanks for attending. So let me go back here to the chat. Okay, you guys have some questions that you'd like to, let me go through here in the chat box and take a look at what you guys have been, writing in your target language, mini tasks, make it really, really easy, impossible to fail. Yeah, if you miss a day, it's like, you miss 5 days. I mean, you have to be like, there's the 12-week year book that I've been reading and seeing that in another challenge where, like, I mean, if you want like a 3-month goal, each day has so much potential, you don't want to waste it. So make each day count. Definitely using the SMART goals. Yeah, that's cool. My book, I need to get back into that. I mean, the idea of like writing about failure and language learning, and especially a couple months ago, 2 months ago, I got fired from my translation job because just I'm not a really good translator. I'm a better language learner and language coach and teacher. So yeah, I need to get some of that book writing. But the problem with talking about failure is recently I've been getting a lot of successes. So I have to stay in a mindset of like, okay, how is failure important to the language learning experience? But yeah, I want to get that book. So I need to get that like on a daily basis to be writing with it. So any language questions, language learning questions that you guys have, that burning questions that you'd like to ask, so I can help you. So thank you very much for joining and for attending and watching this. It's been about an hour. I really appreciate you guys spending time here, and definitely sign up for the challenge, the email challenge, and let me know your language goals and what language you're working on, and I'll be really happy to help you with that. So. Any? So I mean, the challenge, it's like it happens whenever you start with the email. So it's self-paced. It's your 30 days, not necessarily like calendar of like it starts April 1st or it starts May 1st. It's 30 days yourself. So if you sign up for on there, I'll be sending you like a 30-day email set to keep you motivated, hear about what your challenges are, hear your frustrations, and I'm there to help you and help guide you in any way that I can. So feel free to ask me any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to help you and give you advice. And with the communities that I participate in, I'll be very happy to get you in touch with native speakers and teachers who can help keep you focused. So I think that's a real thing that I love right now with the communities, is kind of being a facilitator and being like a point of contact where if people ask me questions, I can put them in contact with somebody else who I know might be a great way to join. So the link for this challenge is down at the bottom of my website here. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom, it says sign up for my 30-day language learning challenge. It's free. So just put in your email and your first name and to join that, and I'll send you an email, and then you guys let me know what language you're learning, and I'll be helping you with that. Okay. Question from Arash. How do you learn cases for Russian and problems with remembering them? I get frustrated that I have to think a lot despite no English rule and despite the fact that I have spoken language a lot. Actually, I created my own web apps for learning Russian. Let me put the links here. So this was one of them is to learn the cases, and this is kind of it's useful for like no matter what level. I'll put this in the link in the in there. This is one that I did for learning the nouns and the cases, and put in there. You can go to my blog, which has the web apps. It's hugginsinternational.blogspot.com. And there's one that's called Para mis compañeros de la clase de ruso. I made this web app for my classmates who were also studying Russian with me in Mexico. And this has developed over the last like 3 years to work on nouns and adjective declensions. And I've made it kind of to be able to be useful for beginners and also intermediate and advanced students. So you can really customize the app when you're using that. Let me also look here. And there is another one that I did for the verbs, which is, let me give you the link for that. And with those nouns and adjectives, you can get a report that you can download actually for your progress. You can see where you need to focus your attention on, if it's like adjectives or nouns, or if it's in the genitive case, or if it's the plural of the dative. I mean, you can get into really specific data analysis with those reports. Okay, and the other one that I have done for sentences is this one called the Russian sentence generator. That's for the sentences as well. But yeah, you have to practice them a little bit and kind of use them in sentences that make sense. And yeah, the cases you kind of need to work with them in patterns and recognize which ones you do in which cases. So. Yeah, with Hungarian, yeah, that's a challenge too, and Estonian, yeah, okay, yeah, with the cases. It's kind of like divide and conquer with the cases. Sometimes you need to kind of practice with one, which might be the object. I've worked with Hungarian a little bit before I visited Budapest, and yeah, there's like there's a direct object, and there's the plural, then there's like the plural and the direct object, and there's the possessive, and then you mix all of these little things. Yeah, at the end of the noun, so it does get kind of complicated. But I would say kind of personalizing sentences that you can work on, and maybe creating memes with like pictures and a sentence, and make it really kind of bite-sized so that you can work with a very limited amount of vocabulary and try to practice them little by little. But I would be very happy to discuss this further with you, and through email, and through also maybe a Skype chat to kind of brainstorm ways to work on learning the cases, and asking native speakers and other learners what worked for them. So yeah, feel free to send me an email. Also, let me put my email in here, hugginsinternational@gmail.com. So feel free to send me questions you have about language learning, and I'll be happy to help you with your target language, or put you in contact with other learners or native speakers or teachers. So, okay. Well, this has probably been about an hour, so I'm going to probably wrap up the recording, but I'm still going to be on the chat box for a little bit. Okay. So thank you once again, everybody who attended. I really appreciate you attending. It gives me a lot of motivation, and thanks for your feedback and your questions. They're excellent, and so I really want to be able to help you guys with your language learning goals. So feel free to send me an email or join the 30-day challenge, and I'll be hearing from you soon. And if you have a chance to follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I look forward to that as well. So thank you again. Take care. I'll say ciao, arrivederci, пока, до встречи, auf Wiedersehen, sziasztok. So there's a lot of languages I would like to say goodbye in, but thank you everybody, and I'll be in touch.